You are welcome to take notes, but we will also have it up. So welcome to the first ever REbox webinar. We're super excited about this. This is our first ever. So technical challenges of Alaska at 8 o'clock in the morning. It is dark. So trying to find the right kind of light for a webinar is a little bit of a challenge. We will do better next week. This is going to be a regular weekly recording. So we're going to be here every Friday, 8 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's noon to 12:30. A lot of people have asked what we want to cover in this. Honestly, we just get a lot of questions, and we're huge about supporting the industry. We're huge about supporting transaction coordinators and ops in general. And so what we decided was, rather than trying to just kind of help each other email by email, phone call by phone call, we would set a time that the operation folks can log on to the webinar, agents can log on to the webinar, it doesn't matter to us, and we can answer some questions. And if people don't have questions, then we're always gonna have some sort of topic that we're gonna cover and hopefully bring some value to everybody. So we're really excited about this. So please, suggestions, feedback, comments, super appreciated. We will have a new webinar platform by next week, so we're excited about that as well. So I wanted to introduce, my name is Jennifer Stallcup. I'm the CEO of REbox. Agent REbox has been around for about 4 years. We are a independent agent services company, so we provide marketing, operations support, file management, listing support, all that kind of stuff. Today we kind of wanted to talk about some of the hiccups that you see in a typical transaction and how you can kind of combat that. So we figured that's something that's kind of a hot topic on everybody's mind. And I asked, begged, pleaded to get Tony Lukowski, who is one of our file managers. We call them file ninjas. Tony's team closed over 500 files last year. And so he has a lot of experience in your typical transaction. So Tony, say hi.
Hi, good morning.
All right, great. Also, everybody, please, you have chat ability. You also have mic ability. I know a lot of people don't want to talk, so that's totally fine, but you do have chat ability. So if you have any questions, queries, posers, just put them up on the chat and we'll be happy to answer them. Tony and I were kind of brainstorming yesterday, kind of the biggest, like the 5 biggest issues in a contract that could potentially derail it. That we see just in running contracts. Tony, you want to hit us with the first one and we can kind of throw it out to everybody if they agree or disagree?
Sure. So a big one that I've often encountered is missing dates.
Yeah.
Missing contract dates. It sounds like an obvious one. But I feel one of the best ways to make sure everyone's on the same page regarding contract dates is, at the very start of the contract, as soon as the home inspection is scheduled, we'll create a little PDF document with all of the important dates of the contract, the repair amendment, when the appraisal needs to be ordered by, etc. And then we produce a little email early on in the contract. And it just helps it helps get the client on the same page and just helps keep all the dates in line. It gives them a little sheet they can look at. And it's just a really easy way to keep on those contract dates.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I should probably mention that I find really interesting, I was a realtor for 10 years, and most of my real estate career was with a company that really had a lot of systems and models and everything else. Coming into the transaction coordination world, obviously I ran my own transactions for a long time, then had an executive assistant. Coming into the transaction coordination world, there's really not a plug and play, this is how you do it. I don't know if those of you that are on this webinar are experiencing the same thing or are in transaction coordination roles, but is anybody doing anything else different that they kind of want to voice in, or are y'all kind of doing the same thing? Because we've found sending that email with the dates to all the parties and kind of just saying, hey, this is what we're seeing on the contract, kind of gives everybody the opportunity to go, no, that's not what I thought it was. It could be this, it could be that, it could be the other thing. Anybody have any other better ideas that they're doing, or is that kind of the norm, or anybody else throwing anything out there? We'll see if people want to chat or not.
Well, I was going to make another quick comment. Another good thing about the dates sheet is, a lot of people, you'll ask them, do you plan to be in town for your closing, or do you have any, holidays or something coming up? And a lot of times, they'll say, oh yeah, yeah, we plan to be in town for closing. But then, once they see the dates laid out, occasionally they'll go, oh, wait a minute, no, we're gonna be, we've got this and this plan going on.
Yeah,
We won't be able to
absolutely.
close it. When they see the dates laid out like that, a lot of people aren't going to flip through all 9 pages or 10 pages of that contract and go, oh, when was this date again? So if you give
Yeah,
them that sheet right at the start, they've got that nice little thing to reference, and it makes it
yeah,
makes it a lot simpler. I think it's just
yeah.
one little thing that you can do that makes it easier to keep track of.
I think that too, based on being a realtor, people are so caught up in the offer process, they get really excited, and they're signing a lot of pages. There's a whole bunch of dates in a contract, regardless of the state you're in, and so they're focused on that process, and oh my God, I'm getting a new home, and they're not really thinking about each one of those dates and what their, in their personal life is going on. So I agree. I think having that email come a little bit later in the process and kind of like a review going, oh, that's right, those are when those dates are supposed to be, it's just a good review for all parties. One thing that you mentioned that I think was on our list as well was the whole people being out of town for closing and chasing them either for, we either have to amend the contract so that you're going to be able to be here, we're going to have to get a power of attorney, and what that actually entails, and then you're potentially looking at sending documents and that time frame and everything else. So it can really, it's such a simple thing, and I know when I was an agent it really wasn't something I ever thought about, and now in REbox land, I mean, it is something that can derail a contract faster than anything else, because it is, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to, we're going on vacation. We're not going to have access to mail, email, any of these kind of things. So it's like, great, how are we going to close on your home? That might have to be an amendment where, if it's just we're going to be at this place and we can get mail, we're going to have access to a notary, then potentially we can send them documents. But again, there may be a delay. We have to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I think that's another thing that hopefully people are catching really early on in the process, whether you're sending a PDF, whether you're sending an email with just saying, hey, here's the dates of the contract, whatever that is, at least asking that question and saying, hey, are you going to be in town for closing? I think that's a really important question that I know when I was a realtor, because I'll just throw myself under the bus, I forgot about asking quite a few times. And thank God when I did have my executive assistant, she asked it all the time and saved us quite a few times, because I would usually find out, I was that typical agent. I'd find out like 2 weeks before the contract, was supposed to close. And then we're all scrambling to get the documents together, where it would have been so much easier to get early on, get a power of attorney, send documents, something like that. So I'm sure we're the only ones that experience that problem. It's just an exclusive REbox problem. No one else has those issues. So we'll just talk about ourselves in this. One thing I should probably note too, we are really an open book company. So if anybody on here is in the ops world and wants to have a sample of, our dates sheet or anything like that, we're more than happy to share. We obviously can't share something that we created specifically for a client because of confidentiality. But if it's something that REbox created, we're more than happy to share, because we feel like, if we can help the operation community, we all just get better. So you can hit us up at hello@Agent REbox if you're interested in any of that, and we'll get that over to you. So just side note. So dates, power of attorney, having a client in closing. So that's 2 of them. We promised them 5. What do you think would be that third piece that you have seen in the last year that really kind of, could derail something?
Another big one would be resale certificates.
Yeah.
Ordering resale certificates is a big one. I can't count how many times, I've checked in, 2 weeks before closing, and then ask the client, hey, did you get the your resale certificate ordered? And sometimes that leads to ordering it on a rush. So, another thing we like to do is we establish real early on in the transaction, first of all, whether or not there is an HOA and whether or not we're going to need to order a resale certificate. So, along with that dates sheet, which provides, kind of a little outline for the client, like we were discussing. We also confirm with the client and with the title company whether or not there is an active HOA, because I've had situations where one side or the other will say, yes, there is an HOA, or no, there isn't an HOA, and one of them has to be incorrect. So yeah, it's always great to check with title. You can check on the preliminary title report itself. It'll often have the CCRs and mention if there's an HOA. But the resale certificate, we find, is another one that's super important to mention early on in the process, just as something that the client will need to keep in mind. If you don't have them order it right away. Some clients don't like to order the resale certificate until after repairs are agreed, and because they don't want their client spending money until they're sure the contract's
Right.
But yeah, the resale certificate is another big one.
Well, and I think the challenge there, I mean, one, yeah, absolutely. As a realtor, you don't want your client to be spending money. But I know this summer we had a couple of homeowners associations, depending on the state, that were taking up to 3 weeks to get us a resale certificate. So if you're waiting until after repair and you have a standard, anywhere from 35 to 45-day contract, now you're in a pinch, and now you're having to ask the client to pay the additional monies for the rush, which of course nobody wants to do. And if they can't get right into that homeowners association right away to get it done, then we run into problems. I do know in some states, the turnaround time, it's been really amazing, and we can get it back really quickly, or they have like an online ordering process. But I do know in some of our states, it's like the client actually has to drive to the homeowners association, the property management, and like give them a check. Which just boggles my mind, that it's 2018 and you can't pay for a resale certificate over the phone. But yeah, so I think that is a huge one, because I think it can derail things really quickly. And also just making sure to follow up with the client saying, because just asking them to order that resale certificate isn't enough. It's following up and making sure that they actually did, because even though they say, yes, I've ordered it, or, yes, I'm going to order it today, you need to be like, okay, did you actually do that? Or did something come up at work and you completely forgot about it, and now we're going to get into trouble? So I would agree with that one as well. All right, so number 4. Actually, I love this one. So, because when you put it on the list, I kind of was like, why would you even put that on the list? And then when I really started thinking about how many times when I was a realtor that I messed up on this, I was like, all right, he's got a point. I should probably just defer to him. So number 4, what was the one that you came up with?
So keys, especially like garage door openers and mailbox keys at closing.
Yeah.
These get forgotten a lot, which makes a ton of sense. You're packing, you're moving out of your house. The last thing you're thinking about is someone else's convenience. You're just thinking about getting your crap out of the house. So one of our agent teams recently had us make a change to their action plan that I kind of liked. A week prior to closing now, they have us send an email just saying, hey, just a friendly reminder, now is a good time to start gathering up any spare keys, garage door openers, lockbox codes. Now's the time to start gathering that stuff up for your buyer. We've had so many, I don't want to say so many, but there's always that occasion where there's a closing, and then you get an email, the seller didn't leave the garage door opener, we can't find it, or what's the code to this side door or this garage door, or it's just another one of those little details that really is pretty important. but is just kind of easy to gloss over and just kind of assume, well, yeah, of course the buyer will end up with all the keys. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and it's really funny because like I said, when you first put this down, I was like, oh, that's not a big deal. But then I think I probably have like a standing credit card with Lowe's for just how many universal garage remotes I bought with them, because
Exactly.
I didn't make sure that we got the garage remote, people moved in, sellers are gone, they're in another state. And then me as the realtor, I'm stepping in and being like, okay, I'll get you a garage remote. And like having to go and do that. Or I'm surprised how many people don't have a key to their home or have misplaced it because they just go through the garage. They're just using that garage door opener. So it's like they don't even know if they have a key to the home. So I mean, I think having that step, and I love that step. So remind me after this, because we're going to ask that agent if we can maybe potentially implement that across the board, because that's brilliant. But sending that email a week ahead of time saying, hey, start gathering your things, start getting things together. I love that idea. One thing that I did when I was a realtor is I actually had and I think we labeled it because I'm so creative. That's with all sarcasm. A important things form that we had the sellers fill out, which was like is there anything that you need to tell the buyer? So like in the middle of winter, you need to jiggle the faucet, or this light, you have to wave your hands 3 times, whatever. But that really helped us as a group to just be able to convey that information, because I think it is tough. I mean, the sellers are under such a time crunch to get the house ready for the buyer. So they're thinking repairs, they're thinking cleanliness, they're thinking packing and moving and all those kind of things. The last thing they think about is, mailbox keys. And that one is incredible to me because when I started in real estate, we actually used to be able to go get those keys from the post office for our clients. And now in most cases, the client has to go with form of ID, everything else in order to get those. So it's not even something that, and they get really upset if you just transfer keys from one person to another. They don't like that, because of identity theft issues. So it's just interesting. Again, kind of one of those little things. I think if you were to ask most realtors, the 5, and it's funny because I have to turn my brain on and off. I'm no longer a realtor. But if you were to ask most realtors, the 5 biggest issues in a contract, I think they would be pretty different than those from someone doing the actual transaction, because I think it's the small details that you never think about that sometimes that can create the biggest hiccup in the process. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, no, I love that. I love the key thing. And like I said, remind me afterwards, we're asking that agent if we can model after them and create something across the board. Cause I think that's amazing. And I think that would bring some just a higher level of service to everybody. So,
I just want to clarify, at the end of all, before closing, we do tell all of our clients to bring their keys or we do arrange the keys, but with this other client, we found that on top of right before closing, a week ahead of time, you just
getting them to prepare
ahead to start thinking about it and start.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you as your boss. I appreciate you clarifying that we actually do follow up on keys. So thank you for that. Okay, so this is probably my favorite. I'm glad we saved it till the last because this is like one of my biggest pet peeves, because I trained you. So keeping track of repair invoices and making sure they get on the settlement statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this would be categorized as the bane of our existence.
Yeah, I would say so. There's always, there's always the chance, there's always the chance that an invoice pops up, 30 days after closing, with a contractor asking you, why they didn't get paid. So, so we take a lot of notes on invoices. This is a lesson I unfortunately had to learn the hard way. But we keep a lot of notes as we order things, as built, ordered this date from this contractor, invoice will be paid out of closing, or client, or well and septic test ordered, client ordered it himself. He plans to pay ahead of time, whatever.
Right.
We keep these notes so that when the time comes, and we're gathering the invoices for closing, we've got a nice little convenient list. We can make sure we've got every invoice that we're expecting. Then on top of that, we fill out a little sheet that tells the client, here's where we're at with the invoices. You let us know if this looks correct. We have this invoice from this contractor for this amount expected to be paid out of closing. We have this invoice from this contractor already paid. And then we attach all the invoices and we digi-sign this to them. They initial each invoice and then they sign this sheet, stating that to their knowledge, that this is, these are all the invoices, and that, this may not be a comprehensive list. If something was missed, you are still responsible, as the seller or whichever party is responsible for that particular invoice. So then, they're well aware, it keeps them, it's just one more little thing that gets them thinking about each of these pieces,
Yeah.
the more you keep these things fresh in your client's mind, the smoother everything's going to go.
Well, and I think one of the big things is because things change, right? So like a seller or an agent will say, oh, the seller is going to pay for this themselves, but then the invoice gets there and maybe they don't have their their check, or they don't have their credit card or whatever. And they're like, and the contractor says, oh, I can take that out of closing. And so then the seller is like, or buyer is like, oh, that'd be amazing. And so, that double check at the end, I think, is really important, because then everybody can go, oh yeah, that's right. I was going to pay that out of, I was going to pay that, but I ended up not. And so I need to have it being paid out of closing. And it gives them that opportunity to just kind of look at it and go, yeah, I need to have it on there. The thing I like about it, because, I obviously don't get involved in a file until, it gets to the point that people are worried about something, that having that packet in the file, for anybody who's out there that's an agent, that's either an agent or a director of operations or something like that, where you're not necessarily in the file every single day. One of the reasons I love that packet is because I can go into any file and pull that up really quickly and see everything. I can see that the seller has initialed it. I can see that we presented it, so it helps me tremendously, because I can pull up the settlement statement. I can pull up that. Also, the team can just send that packet to title, so that as a double check of, hey, here's all the invoices. Do you have what you need? Do you have, this is what I have. Is this what you have? Because I think we forget, that email is fallible. There's spam filters. We can spell their name wrong. Things can change. Somebody can just overlook it. It can just get filed in a different folder. So having that double check system and working with our partners in title, I think that's huge, to just say, this is what I have on my page. Is this what you have on your page? I'm glad that somebody walked in on you, because I threatened my entire family, because I was convinced that either a dog, a child, something would become streaking through. So it's good that we got that out of the way. So no, I think that's a huge piece, is the invoice piece. And I think it's also super simple to just, then compare that to the settlement statement. And, I think it just makes it easier all around. So, but I think invoices are something that always will be a challenge, as long as we're paying things out of closing, as long as there are well and septic as-built, resale. There's so many things that can go on a closing statement. So I think that's a huge piece of it. Yeah.
And I think the way we handle invoices, it's a good little example of these little, I'm trying to think of a good word for it, maybe like stop gaps, I guess, that we've installed in our action plan of common places where, I'll just to keep up with the little metaphor here, where leaks, where typical spots where a leak would appear in a transaction, or where something would typically, something could be easily overlooked. We have these stop gaps that we've installed.
Yeah, no,
step
absolutely.
process that just helps keep all of these things on everyone's mind. It keeps everyone aware. The more aware the client is of where the contract's at, the more in the loop they are, the better,
Yeah.
the better chance that something's not going to get screwed up, basically.
I agree. Well, I think operations as a whole, and I didn't really even understand this as an agent, because as an agent, I'm like, the buck stops with me, right? When I had an executive assistant step into that, she really felt like the buck stopped with her. I mean, she really took personal responsibility for each and every file. Those clients were her clients. And I know with REbox, as we've grown over the years, it amazes me. It actually makes me incredibly proud, but you all feel that way. When it's really funny because sometimes if something's falling apart or something goes sideways, the agent will call me and the agent's totally calm and totally like, it's okay, stuff happens, it's not a big deal. And then when I'm talking to, one of the REbox ninjas, they're like, oh my God, this is horrible. We have to make sure this never happens again. And I love that because I love that passion. I love that feeling of, we are a team and we're all here to make sure that we get it to the closing. And it doesn't matter if you're in an agent services company or, you're an executive assistant, you're a personal assistant, you're a transaction coordinator. It really doesn't matter. Like if you're the right person for the job, these files mean just as much to you as to the realtors, so I love that. We only have a couple of minutes, so the time has flown by. Tony, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. He was our guinea pig out of everybody. He was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take one for the team. So totally appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions of any of our viewers? If you don't want to speak up now, please feel free to email us at the hello@agent.rebox. You can also post questions on our Facebook. We even have Instagram. Being brutally honest, I'm not good at Instagram, but you youngins probably are. So I think there's a place in there for questions. Not positive. And we will be posting this up on there. Our thought for next week was that we would cover SOPs. For those of you who don't know what an SOP is, my entire team knows what an SOP is. It's a standard operating procedure. We live and die by them, and I think they're a very underutilized, system. So we wanted to kind of cover how we approach SOPs and give you some examples of our SOPs. And we thought that might be helpful, but if somebody has a better idea or somebody feels like that wouldn't be helpful to them at all, we want this to be something that is truly helping everyone. So anybody have any questions or any comments or any feedback or any ideas for future webinars? All right. I can tell we're operations people because there is no talking and no chatting. All right, so then what we're gonna do is we will make sure we post this link on Facebook and Instagram. If you want us to send it to you, we're more than happy to. We are gonna have this webinar every single week, 8 to 8:30. That's noon to 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. So it's gonna be the same link. If it changes for some reason, we'll let you know. Check out our Facebook group. We will always update that. I know how to work Facebook, so because I'm that generation. And otherwise, if anybody has any questions, queries, posers, or want samples of anything that we talked about, just reach out to us. So really appreciate everybody showing up in our maiden voyage, and we will talk to you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jen. Bye.